At 56, I decided to give everything to my wife during our divorce. My lawyer begged me to stop, but I signed the papers with a smile. No one knew I had already won the case before her lawyer even read the document. I'm Leonard Miller, and for 30 years, I thought I knew my wife Dorothy. We built Miller and Associates Software Consulting from nothing. Just me, coding in our garage while she handled the business side. 2 kids we raised right, and a company that grew into something we could be proud of. I figured we'd coast into retirement together, maybe travel a bit, enjoy what we'd earned. Life has a way of showing you the truth when you're least ready for it. It started small. Dorothy began staying late at the office more often, claiming big client presentations. She'd come home smelling different, some expensive perfume I'd never bought her. When I asked about it, she'd wave me off and say it was from networking events. Her phone, which used to sit on the kitchen counter all evening, suddenly became her constant companion, password protected naturally. Dot, "Are you seeing someone else?" I asked her one night over dinner. She looked at me with those green eyes that once made me feel like the luckiest programmer in Connecticut. "Leo, don't be ridiculous. I'm 53 years old. Who would I be seeing?" I wanted to believe her. God, how badly I wanted to believe her. But then came the company credit card statements, charges at fancy restaurants I'd never been to, hotel rooms downtown when she claimed to be at tech conferences, jewelry purchases that never appeared in her dresser. I sat at my home office computer, hands shaking as I pulled up the financial reports. Thousands of dollars, tens of thousands. How long had this been going on? The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. I was updating our server backups when I found a personal email in the company's system. Dorothy had forgotten to log out of her account. The subject line read, "Last night was our company. Love you, Dorothy. Timothy, our company. Love you, Dorothy. Timothy Walsh, our junior partner, the 34-year-old sales director I'd mentored for 3 years." That evening, I confronted her. No more hints, no more careful questions. I printed out the email and placed it on the dinner table between us. "Who's T?" Dorothy's face went white, then red. For a moment, I saw panic, but it quickly transformed into something colder, something calculating. "I want a divorce," she said flatly. "I've already spoken to my attorney." Just like that, 30 years dismissed in one sentence. "We can split things fairly," I started, but she cut me off. "Fair?" She laughed, a sound without warmth. "Leo, the company is in my name. The house is in my name. I've been very careful about that over the years. You'll get what I decide to give you. Everything tilted. Dorothy, we built that company together. I wrote every line of code. I designed every system. You were never officially a partner for most of it. Good luck proving your contribution in court." She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "My lawyer will be in touch. I suggest you get one too." She left that night and never came back. 3 weeks later, I sat in Harold Peterson's office. He'd been recommended by my son, Nathan. Harold reviewed Dorothy's proposed settlement with growing alarm. "Mr. Miller, this is highway robbery," he said, looking up from the papers. "She's offering you $75,000 and some office equipment. That's it. The company is worth at least $1.8 million, and the house is worth $650,000. What are my chances if we fight?" Harold hesitated. "Honestly, it's complicated. She restructured everything legally over the years. The business registration shows her as primary owner since 2010. You haven't been on official payroll for the technical work. Connecticut law would give you something, but proving your contribution after all this. Time? It could take years and cost a fortune. What if I just sign?" Harold stared at me. "I'm sorry? What if I agree to her terms? Just sign everything over?" "Mr. Miller, I strongly advise against that. Please think about your future. How will you support yourself?" I signed the last page and looked up with a smile that confused everyone in the room. "Don't worry, Harold," I said quietly. "I know exactly what I'm doing. Nobody knew I'd already won. They just didn't realize it yet." I left Harold's office and sat in my car for 20 minutes. My hands shook as I started the engine. What had I just done? I'd signed away everything. My home, my security, my future. No. Stop. Think. I drove to the small apartment I'd rented after Dorothy left. 1 bedroom, thin walls, view of the parking lot. This was my life now at 56 years old. I made coffee and sat at my laptop, forcing myself to breathe slowly. What did I have left? I opened my backup drives and began searching. This was something I'd learned in my programming days. When overwhelmed, check your data, facts, files, evidence. The company Dorothy claimed is solely hers. I'd worked there from day one, 30 years. I'd built every system, written most of the core applications, handled all technical architecture. But she was right about one thing. After 2010, I wasn't officially on payroll for most of my work. We'd thought we were being smart, minimizing taxes by treating my work as partnership distributions. How wrong I'd been. But wait, I pulled out my archive drives, dozens of them, going back decades. I'd been obsessive about backups and documentation. Dorothy used to joke about it. Leo and his digital hoarding, she'd laugh. He's got backups of backups. I wasn't laughing now. I spent that entire night going through files. My back ached, my eyes burned, but I kept digging. And slowly, methodically, I found them. Evidence. Not just code repositories, something better. Email chains. Thousands of emails from 1994 to 2015. Client correspondence where Dorothy herself referred to Leonard and I, or our technical team, led by my partner, Leonard. Business proposals where both our names appeared as co-founders. Insurance documents listing me as technical director and co-owner. And then I found it, the original business registration from 1994. Miller and Associates Software Consulting, founded by Leonard Miller and Dorothy Miller. My name was right there in the digital filing. She'd changed the registration in 2010, removing me as official partner, but the original filing proved I'd been co-founder from day one. My hands stopped shaking. The next morning, I called a different lawyer, not Harold. He was a good man, but he'd seen me surrender. I needed someone who didn't know about my apparent defeat. Victor Thompson's office, a crisp voice answered. Victor Thompson had a reputation, expensive, aggressive, known for winning cases others thought were lost. I'd like to schedule a consultation, I said. It's regarding a divorce settlement. Mr. Thompson's calendar is quite full, but we might have an opening next month. I have original business registration documents proving co-ownership of a $1.8 million company that my wife claims she built alone. I also have evidence she's been embezzling company funds. And I signed away everything yesterday, but the papers haven't been filed yet. Pause. Can you be here at 2 p.m. today? Victor Thompson was in his 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened while I explained everything. The affair, Dorothy's threats, my signing yesterday, and the box of evidence I'd brought. He spent 45 minutes reviewing my digital files without speaking. Finally, he leaned back. Mr. Miller, do you know what you've done? My heart sank. Made a terrible mistake? No. A slow smile crossed his face. You've given yourself the perfect legal position. You signed under duress with inadequate representation and without full disclosure of marital assets. More importantly, you signed yesterday, but the papers haven't been filed yet. He tapped my original business registration on his screen. This document alone changes everything. And you said Dorothy told you the company was solely hers because you never contributed. Yes, in front of her lawyer. Even better. That's fraudulent concealment. Victor leaned forward. Mr. Miller, you haven't lost anything. You've laid a trap, and your wife walked right into it. Hope crept back in. Victor didn't waste time. By end of day, he'd filed a motion to set aside the settlement, claiming duress and failure to disclose assets. But we didn't just defend, we attacked. We're filing for forensic accounting, he explained. We'll examine every transaction for the past 5 years. If Dorothy's been using business funds for personal expenses related to her affair, we'll find it. The next morning, Victor called with news. Dorothy's lawyer just contacted me. Carol Martinez is furious. She wants to know why you retain new counsel. What did you tell her? That my client reconsidered after discovering evidence of asset concealment and marital fraud. I also informed her we'll be deposing Mrs. Miller about the business finances and her relationship with Timothy Walsh. I heard my own sharp intake of breath. You know his last name? I know everything now, Mr. Miller. Timothy Walsh, 34, sales director at your company. They've been involved for approximately 2.5 years. He's been receiving unauthorized bonuses and company benefits. She's been paying for his apartment lease using business credit cards. 2.5 years. While I'd been planning our retirement, she'd been planning my replacement. What happens next? Next we wait for them to panic. And Mr. Miller. They will panic. Victor was right. 2 days later, Dorothy called at 7 a.m. We hadn't spoken since the night she demanded a divorce. Leo. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. You hired Victor Thompson. What are you trying to prove? The settlement was fair. Fair? I laughed, and it felt good. You tried to steal everything I helped build over 30 years. You called $75,000 fair for half a lifetime of work. Silence. Then, Leo, you're 56 years old. Do you really want to spend your remaining productive years fighting in court? We could resolve this amicably, like you resolved our marriage amicably by having a 2.5-year affair with Timothy Walsh. I heard her breath catch. How did you? Never mind how. Dorothy, be reasonable. The company is half mine. I have the original registration papers from 1994. Miller and Associates, founded by Leonard Miller and Dorothy Miller. Remember that? Long silence. Those papers don't mean anything, she finally said, but her voice had lost its certainty. I restructured the business legally in 2010. After I'd worked there for 16 years as co-founder, my lawyer is very interested in why you restructured it, and he's even more interested in Timothy's apartment lease being paid with company funds. You can't prove. I can prove everything. I have 30 years of digital records. Every email, every file, every transaction. You used to joke about my backup obsession. You're not laughing now, are you? Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice had hardened. You're making a mistake, Leo. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is trusting you. I hung up. My hands shook again, but this time it was adrenaline. Victor called an hour later. Dorothy's lawyer wants to meet. They want to negotiate. Already. They're scared, Mr. Miller. The forensic accounting request has them rattled. I thought about Dorothy's threat. She said I'd regret this. Empty words from a desperate woman, Victor assured me. Stay strong, we're winning. The forensic accountant's report arrived 3 weeks later. Victor called me to his office, and I could hear satisfaction in his voice. Mr. Miller, your instincts were correct. Dorothy has been systematically embezzling company funds for years. He slid the report across his desk. Over the past 2.5 years alone, she's diverted approximately $280,000 to personal use, almost all related to her affair with Walsh. I stared at the numbers. Luxury hotel stays, expensive jewelry, Timothy's apartment lease, even a car. A BMW registered in his name. She'd used our company, the business we built together, to fund her affair. That's not all, Victor continued. She's also been undervaluing the company in her financial disclosures. She claimed it's worth $1.2 million. Our analysis suggests it's closer to $1.8 million. That afternoon, Victor filed an amended complaint adding charges of financial fraud and misappropriation of marital assets. He also requested an emergency freeze on all business accounts until the matter was resolved. The response was immediate. At 8 p.m., my daughter Linda called, panicked. Dad, Mom just called me. She's furious. She's saying terrible things about you, that you're trying to destroy her. She said if you don't drop the lawsuit, she'll ruin your reputation in the industry. What kind of reputation damage? She didn't specify. Just kept saying she has information that would destroy your career. After Linda hung up, I sat in my small apartment. Dorothy was trying to isolate me, turn our children against me, but I'd lived an honest professional life. Whatever she was threatening was a bluff. The anonymous texts started the next day. Drop the lawsuit or lose everything. You're making yourself look pathetic. She was going to leave you anyway. You're old and boring. That last one stung more than I wanted to admit. On the third day, I arrived at my apartment to find Timothy Walsh sitting in his car. When he saw me, he got out. Mr. Miller, we need to talk. I should have walked away. Instead, I stopped. If you're here to plead Dorothy's case, save your breath. Look, I know you probably hate me, but Dorothy and I love each other. She told me her marriage was over long before we met. How original. You're ruining her life. His voice rose. The account freeze means she can't pay bills, can't run the business properly. You're being vindictive. I turned back slowly. I'm being vindictive? She tried to leave me with $75,000 after 30 years of marriage. She used money from our company that I helped code from scratch to pay for your apartment. And I'm the villain? She deserves to be happy. Then she should have divorced me honestly and given me what I was owed. Instead, she tried to steal everything. I walked closer to him. You want to know what's vindictive, Timothy? Lying to someone for 2.5 years, making them feel crazy for suspecting the truth, trying to rob them of their future security. That's vindictive. His face reddened. Dorothy said you'd be like this, bitter and jealous. I'm not bitter, I said, and realized it was true. I'm just done being taken advantage of. I went inside and locked the door. Timothy and Dorothy were desperate. They were making mistakes, showing their hand. The trial began on a cold December morning. I sat beside Victor, watching Dorothy and Carol Martinez enter. Timothy wasn't there. He'd been subpoenaed to testify later. Judge Helen Rodriguez presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. Victor had told me she was known for being fair but unforgiving of dishonesty. Carol started with her opening statement, painting Dorothy as a business development genius who'd built client relationships through pure networking skill. Mr. Miller contributed technical work, she said, but his role was back-end support. He's not entitled to half of what Mrs. Miller built through her business acumen. Then Victor stood. Your Honor, this is a case about theft, not just of money, but of credit and recognition. The evidence will show that Leonard Miller wasn't merely technical support. He was co-founder and equal partner who built every system that made this company profitable. The evidence will also show that Dorothy Miller systematically rewrote history to erase his contributions, then attempted to steal his rightful share when he discovered her infidelity. Over the next 2 days, Victor methodically built our case. He presented the original 1994 business registration, showing both our names as founders. He showed emails and documents from the 1990s and 2000s where Dorothy herself had referred to us as partners and co-owners. Arthur Brooks, our former technical manager, testified about my role. Leonard Miller built that company from the ground up, he said firmly. Every major system, every client solution, every technical innovation came from him. Dorothy handled sales and marketing, but without Leonard's coding, there'd be no company to sell. Then came Rachel Kim, the forensic accountant. She walked the judge through Dorothy's financial irregularities with devastating precision. Over the past 2.5 years, Mrs. Miller diverted approximately $280,000 from business accounts to personal use, she testified. This includes apartment lease payments, luxury purchases, hotel stays, all related to her extramarital relationship. Judge Rodriguez asked, "How significant is the undervaluation?" She claimed the company was worth $1.2 million. Based on revenue analysis, client contracts, and industry comparisons, the business is worth between $1.6 and $1.9 million. I watched Dorothy's face as the numbers were laid bare. She looked sick. On the third day, Dorothy took the stand. Carol tried to rehabilitate her image, but Victor's cross-examination was surgical. Mrs. Miller, you testified that your husband had only a support role, yet I'm showing you an email you sent to a client in 2015. Can you read the highlighted section? Dorothy's hands trembled as she held the printout. It says, "Please direct all technical questions to my partner and co-founder, Leonard Miller." Your partner and co-founder? Victor repeated. Not your employee, not your contractor, your partner. That was just, we were married. I was being courteous. I see. And this business proposal from 2012 where you listed the company as Miller and Associates, owned and operated by Leonard and Dorothy Miller. Was that also courtesy? I don't recall that specific document, but it's your signature at the bottom, isn't it? Yes, but... Mrs. Miller, when did you decide to restructure the business to remove your husband's name? In 2010. For tax purposes. For tax purposes. And did those tax savings amount to the $280,000 you later stole from the company to fund your affair? Objection. Carol stood. Sustained, Judge Rodriguez said. But she was looking at Dorothy with clear skepticism. When Timothy testified the next day, he was obviously uncomfortable. Victor established the timeline of the affair, the apartment lease, the gifts. Then he asked, Mr. Walsh, were you aware that Mrs. Miller was using business funds for personal expenses related to your relationship? Timothy hesitated. I didn't really think about where the money came from. You didn't think about it, even though you knew Mr. Miller co-owned the business? Dorothy said the business was hers. Victor showed him a text message we'd recovered from company phone records. This is a text you sent Mrs. Miller last year. Can you read it? Timothy's face went pale. It says, "Thanks for covering the BMW payment. Hope Leonard doesn't check the books too closely, LOL." The courtroom was silent. "So you did know," Victor said quietly. "You knew she was stealing from her husband to fund your lifestyle, and you joked about it." Timothy started crying, but the damage was done. Judge Rodriguez delivered her ruling on a Friday afternoon. The courtroom was packed. Linda and Nathan sat behind me, along with Arthur and several former employees. Dorothy sat rigid beside Carol, her face ashen. "I've reviewed all evidence and testimony carefully, Judge," Rodriguez began. "This is one of the clearest cases of marital fraud I've seen in my career." I felt Victor's hand briefly squeeze mine. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that Leonard Miller was co-founder and equal partner in Miller and Associates. The original registration, contemporaneous documents, and credible testimony all confirm this. Mrs. Miller's attempt to erase his contributions is not only dishonest, it's legally fraudulent. Carol started to stand, but the judge held up a hand. The forensic evidence shows Mrs. Miller systematically embezzled marital assets to fund an extramarital affair, then undervalued the business in her disclosures. She lied under oath and attempted to deprive her husband of his rightful share. Judge Rodriguez looked directly at Dorothy. "Therefore, I rule as follows. First, Miller and Associates is marital property. Mr. Miller is entitled to 50% of its true value, which I set at $1.8 million. That's $900,000, Carol whispered urgently to Dorothy, but she seemed frozen. Second, Mrs. Miller must reimburse the marital estate $280,000 she embezzled. Third, the marital home is awarded to Mr. Miller as compensation for fraudulent concealment. Fourth, Mrs. Miller will pay all legal fees. Fifth, I'm ordering an IRS audit of the business as evidence suggests tax fraud. I did quick math. $900,000 plus $280,000 plus the house plus legal fees. The total judgment is $1.65 million to Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller has 90 days to satisfy this judgment or face asset seizure. Judge Rodriguez looked at me directly. Mr. Miller, your meticulous documentation over 30 years preserved evidence that made justice possible. You should be commended. Thank you. I turned to look at Dorothy. She sat 10 feet away. I turned to look at Dorothy. She sat slumped, Carol leaning over her frantically. Timothy had appeared from somewhere, looking devastated. Dorothy looked up, and our eyes met. I felt nothing. No triumph, no anger, no sadness. Just quiet closure. Later that evening, Victor called. "Leonard, Dorothy's business partners contacted me. They want to buy out your 50% share. They'll pay $950,000 cash within 30 days. That's more than the appraised value. They want Dorothy gone. The scandal, the IRS investigation, the embezzlement, they're done with her. Buying you out gives them leverage to force her out entirely." I thought about it. What happens to Dorothy? She'll be forced to sell her stake too, probably at a loss. With what she owes you plus legal fees plus the IRS investigation, she'll be lucky to break even. Tell them I accept. "Leonard," Victor said quietly, "you won completely. Congratulations." 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new home, a comfortable ranch house I'd bought outright for $385,000. It was smaller than our old place, but it was mine, really mine. Nathan was helping me set up my new home office while Linda arranged books on shelves. We'd spent the morning configuring my network and getting my consulting business started. "Dad, you seem different," Linda said. "Happier, not just relieved, actually happy." I considered this. I am happy. I didn't think I would be, but I am. Do you ever think about Mom? Sometimes, but I don't miss her. I don't hate her either. She's just someone I used to know. The settlement had been finalized 2 months ago. After buying the house and setting up trust funds for future grandchildren, I had $1.2 million invested, generating enough income that I'd never worry about money again. More importantly, I'd started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping other men navigate divorce. My experience and documentation skills were helping others avoid the trap I'd escaped. "Have you heard anything about Mom?" Nathan called from the office. "Only what you've told me. My children still saw Dorothy occasionally. I'd never interfered with their relationship." "It's not good, Dad," Linda said carefully. The IRS found major irregularities. She owes back taxes and penalties. The business partners forced her out completely. She's working as a contractor now, making maybe a quarter of what she used to earn. And Timothy? He left her about a month ago, Nathan said, emerging from the office. Guess the romance wasn't as strong when the money dried up. I should have felt satisfaction, but I only felt distant sadness. Dorothy had destroyed our life together for an affair that hadn't survived a year after the money disappeared. That evening, after my kids left, I sat on my back porch with a beer, watching the sunset. My phone rang. Victor, with a final update. Leonard, Dorothy's bankruptcy filing, was approved today. Between the judgment, IRS penalties, and other debts, she couldn't make ends meet. She's starting over from nothing. I absorbed this. The woman who'd tried to leave me with $75,000 was now destitute. The woman who'd told me I was just technical support was now alone and broke. "How do you feel?" Victor asked. I searched my heart carefully. I feel free. Not because she's suffering, just because it's finally over. It is over, Victor agreed. You won, Leonard, not just in court, but in life. You rebuilt. She didn't. After we hung up, I stayed on the porch as darkness fell. Fireflies appeared in the yard. Somewhere nearby, children were playing. Dorothy had tried to steal my future. Instead, I'd claimed it for myself. This house, this quiet evening, this peaceful independence. It was worth more than all our years together. Looking back now, I realized the most valuable thing I kept wasn't the money or the house. It was my dignity and self-respect. Here's what I learned at 56. Never stop documenting your work. Never let anyone convince you that your contributions don't matter. And never settle for less than you deserve just because someone hopes you're too tired to fight. I was 56 when my life fell apart. I'm 57 now, and I've never been happier. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have signed those papers? Would you have fought back? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe. There's power in shared experiences. Remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Never. Success isn't about avoiding betrayal. It's about being so prepared that when betrayal comes, you turn it into your greatest victory. The person who documents everything and keeps receipts doesn't just protect themselves. They hold the power to rewrite the ending when others think the story is over.